So let's do some workshopping on intention, attention, and awareness, or simply said, let's look into the difference between mindfulness practice and awareness practice. And this also has to do with the rest that we did. I'll just continue a little bit about rest and sleep before going into the workshop. So, as I mentioned, there are different techniques for increasing lucidity of dreams and sleep in general, meaning that instead of being not aware, not conscious at all during sleep, or being semi-conscious, this quality of being aware can be enhanced through different practices. And in Tibetan Heart Yoga, on the third empowerment level, we have several sleep deities and a mantric syllable related to them. So those who have have received the third empowerment, who have opened the first Mahasiddha Bhumi, which is the requirement for receiving the third empowerment, they receive this sleep yoga instruction. But as I said, there can be a large variety of sleep yoga techniques. There are in Western psychology or sleep study, they use different techniques, and in Tibetan Buddhism there are a whole variety depending on the lineage. They have different techniques, visualizations, whatever. But really the core of sleep yoga is the non-meditation that we do. So when, in my experience, especially after the 11th Bhumi opens, and then Rigpa, this awareness becomes very stable, and it keeps becoming more and more stable. Like with the opening of the 11th, as I always say, this awareness is always there. You can't shoo it away anymore. It's just there. So, but then when you continue practice, your mind becomes purer and purer. Through tantric practice, it becomes like more grounded. I'm talking about Bhumi perfection. It becomes more grounded, more solid in a way. So this also, when awareness is the default mode where we are, it's also easier and easier to have lucid dreams and be aware of deep sleep where there are no dream images. And also falling asleep, it happens in I've counted 5 steps, like descending steps, falling asleep. So if you are naturally aware, you can just let your body fall into that sleep. It's another mind phenomena, really. The mind falling into sleep, but the awareness stays. So in that way, rest can also be a profound, or like a proper Chokchen Ati Yoga practice. But here's the deal, and this has to do with the workshop that we're about to begin, about mindfulness, intention and attention, that if we are too mindful when trying to go to sleep, we won't fall asleep. Like if there's conscious effort, conscious concentration, it will prevent us from falling asleep. But it's a whole different deal with being aware, plain awareness. Because as I said earlier today, in plain awareness, in Ati Yoga, there is no effort at all. That's the key thing. Okay? So now, as Matt was asking it yesterday or the day before, the difference between mindfulness, like the view of mindfulness practice or view of awareness practice, the way how I've taught it, I think it's been a while since I've guided this workshop, like a year or so. I think the previous workshops can be found from the YouTube channel, and I've written also something about, these categorizations about intention, attention, and awareness in Open Heart blog. If you search with those words, you can come up with some texts. But so we have intention, attention, and awareness. So by these first two words, what I mean by them, intention. So intention is like applying your concentration into one thing at a time. Like if you pick an object now in your field of vision, for example, in front of me there is I have papers and my smartphone on a music stand, and this music stand has a staple in it. If I focus solely on that one single staple and like clearly attend it with my mind, attend it with my intention, that's what I mean by intention, that word. There is a conscious intention, conscious effort in aiming at a single object. And this single object can be anything. It can be something external. I've heard some meditation teachers, they use a pebble or any simple, like really plain item, usually very plain and therefore boring. So usually not something ornamented or fancy, but something very plain. And you are just to have your concentration. Have your concentration attend that object all the time. And then what of course happens is that you get distracted from it. You're watching, I was mentioning that the object of concentration can be something external or it can be something internal. Like for example, following the breath, the movement of the breath in the belly, usually a couple of centimeters below the navel, the Chinese and Japanese words for it are Tanden or Dantien. Hara is a more general name. So concentration practice can be also following the breath in the gut, a couple of centimeters below the navel, like that location. And just holding your concentration there. Or it can be holding concentration here at the bridge of the nose. Some of the classical examples. So what of course happens is that when we attend this one object is that we get distracted. Whether mentally, when our eyes are still watching the pebble or a staple or whatever it is, our eyes can be looking at it, but on the level of our mind, we are planning next lunch or thinking our, girlfriend or a boyfriend or. So this happens, definitely. We all know that, right? So the practice in that case is that you come back to it. When you notice that you're distracted, you come back to it. And that's the practice really. Being focused, getting distracted, becoming focused again. And distracted, focused, distracted, focused, distracted, focused. What happens is that when we attend with our concentration some single object, is that there is pressure there. So concentration or focus means that there is a pressure. And by pressure, I mean this conscious effort in attending a single object. There has to be a push to be able to keep that. Are you following me? So when there is that push in there, that pressure there, what happens is that all the things in the mind, thoughts, emotions, whatever you have, they retreat into the periphery in the mind. So with that pressure, we are kind of drilling a hole. And when that hole appears, that's what is spoken of as samadhi. In Zen Buddhism, they speak of samadhi and prajna. So that hole that you drill among all these mind actions, that's the purpose of that concentration practice. We use concentration practice differently in open heart, in Tibetan heart yoga, but I'll mention more of that later. So yeah, that's concentration practice. And now I just want to mention that I haven't mentioned anything yet about Dzogchen, about Ati Yoga. I'm plainly talking about really simple mindfulness concentration practice. So you focus, get distracted, you focus again, get distracted, and that's how it goes. And then as you train that muscle of concentration, you become skillful using it, sort of like skillful using a tool, then at some point after training of months, a couple of years, you can control it. But it takes a while. It takes a while. Like with any skill or art, learning to getting used to the tools, it takes a while. And it's a good skill, but it requires effort for sure. So that's one thing, drilling a hole, watching one thing, focusing on one thing, and drilling a hole. These terms are used in slightly different way in Mahamudra, in Tibetan Mahamudra, but this type of meditation is also called meditation with support. And it's that object that is the support. It gives a support for concentration. Then there is meditation without support, which I call attention. So a simplest way to... This keeps tilting all the time. So a simplest way to understand attention You can hear me there? So the simplest way to understand attention is to think of cats and dogs when they become alert. And alertness is actually a very good word alone. So when there is a sudden noise, a cat or a dog, we have seen how they behave. They become all ears, all eyes, attentive, alert. They are not focused on one thing. they are focused on the field, on the panorama, on the sphere of, they are listening to the like a sphere of panorama. Right?
Yeah.
So, in that way, it's easy to understand the difference that if we are focused on one thing, or if we are attentive, alert, not focusing on one single thing, but here the alertness, the attentiveness is the object of concentration. It's spoken of as meditation or shamatha without support, because the support is no longer like a concrete thing, but it's still, this attentiveness, alertness that we apply. There is still the pressure. There is the squeeze there.
Yeah, that tightness.
Oh, this is too big.
Too big,
So it's really as simple as that.
This might work because not too big.
Delivering a talk and having to screw them. Oh yes, this does it. Never done that before. Did I break it or what? So, attention. So, if you do it just now with me. So again, I haven't mentioned a word about awareness. So forget that for now. And just like in the analogy of cats and dogs being alert, just be slightly alert. Like 5%. Listening with attention, feeling with attention, watching with attention. Just like cats and dogs, if there was a mouse running freely in this room and we didn't know where it is, we can't hear it, but we know it's there, but we try to spot it, we try to see it, or we try to hear it, we try to detect it. Attentive in that kind of in that way. In order to be able to detect with the eyes, you have to have panoramic peripheral vision. Like if you were focused on one thing, you would miss the mouse if it's somewhere in the corner of the visionary field. So now it's just 5-10%. How about if there was something dangerous? If it wasn't a harmless mouse, but there was let's take the proper mental image. If there was a cobra snake in this room, like if it was really dangerous, scorpion, cobra, some hairy spider, you would want to know more where it is, because if you didn't, you would be screwed, right? But now see, with this mental image, what happens when you tweak up, sort of like put the volume higher with your attention. What happens on the level of the mind? It might be right next to your foot. And now the cobra is gone, the venomous, dangerous animal is gone, and the mouse returned. Where is it? Slight attentiveness, 5-10%. So you can be a lot more relaxed than with the venomous snake. And now the mouse is gone too. We didn't do together, we didn't try out the intention, so let's do that as well. So pick one object that you see in front of you. Let's take our breath actually. So pick a point this much, 2-3 centimeters below your navel, at the surface of the skin, perhaps a little bit, like 1 centimeter inside the surface of the skin. And feel the movement of the breath in that point. So that point is like the tip of your own, the size of the tip of your own little finger. It's not a large area. It's not as small as a tip of a needle. About the tip of your little finger. So at first you can have a slight concentration, 5-10% of pressure. Increase the pressure to 30%. You're watching it now like a hawk, more intensively. Then increase the intensity more to 60-70%. Now it's already so intensive that even if somebody shot a gun there on the street, you wouldn't get distracted. Because you're so involved, your mind is so involved with this process of concentration. Keep it in 60-70% for a moment. And now you can turn the meter lower, back to 30-40. Not becoming distracted, but you're kind of relaxing, making it less intense. But you're still focused on one point, excluding the sounds of the surroundings or anything else in the visual field, excluding everything else. And then take it down to 5-10%. Now, because it's very light already, like lightly resting, there's still pressure, but the pressure is so little that it's more of like light resting, which makes all the sounds of the vicinity, movements. Well, we are in a space where there is little movement now since we're all sitting together, but now we're already kind of starting to see, if we have open eyes, seeing if somebody's moving next to us. You know, the periphery starts to be included as there's so little pressure. And then just completely release the pressure. Not being concentrated anymore. So that was these two experiments that we did, attention and intention. It's the same, exactly the same principle with these two. You can move your body if you want. It's exactly the same principle, as you can understand. There is little pressure or more pressure. And of course, if I had to explain mindfulness in the simplest terms, I would say that it's the union of relaxation and concentration. Relaxation and concentration together. And if there's too much relaxation, then concentration suffers. If there's too much concentration, relaxation suffers. Right? So what we did was to, like I said, 10%, 30%, 60%, we kind of tried to see that there's this dynamic meter. How do you say, like you can adjust the dynamics of it, the intensity of it, but still it's about pressure, applying pressure. Awareness, if we're talking about purely non-meditation, Hatha yoga, no pressure at all. Applying pressure purely from Dzogchen point of view is not necessary, not needed. and actually false. If we look at purely from that point of view. But then, as we have a mind and we are samsaric beings, and we also have Buddha nature, this samsaric mind requires us to do something about it, because we can't pretend that it's not there. So let's look into awareness. Well, we already done it. That's what we mainly do. But now, after these sessions with attention and intention, let's look into awareness. So now we don't have a object that we're focusing on. We are not attentive and alert of the surroundings. We're not applying intention or attention. In other words, we are not practicing mindfulness. Just simple knowing. Knowing without an effort. Effortless mindfulness. It's a very good term, actually, effortless mindfulness, because effortless obviously means without effort. And mindfulness, in that sense, means that you're not distracted. So when we find this knowing, that is, as I often say, is the basis of all sense perceptions, is at the basis of all thinking, feeling, sleeping, is at the basis of all mind states. When we recognize that, what this knowing means, how it relates to our being, we can also understand that there's no pressure. And also, as I mentioned, that I think mindfulness can be explained as the union of relaxation and concentration with awareness, with the recognition of this basic knowing. It doesn't really matter whether our body is stiff and stressed or not, or whether it's relaxed. This basic knowing is always there. But it does tend to happen that when you're just in this knowing, that your body relaxes. So, because we are not applying mindfulness, we are not applying intention or attention, but just aware, it means that we are not shutting ourselves inside a bubble. And because we are not doing that, we are present with all things. Right? If we were concentrated on one thing or alert, there would be instantly a possibility for getting distracted. And obviously, if we are doing mindfulness practice, the key then is to increase intention or attention, to make drill the hole bigger. But here, from the basic space, thoughts can come, emotions can come. If you have familiarized with it, not a problem at all. Not getting distracted. But if you're not there yet, if you get distracted into thinking, emotions, then what is not done in non-meditation is that you would apply concentration. But that can also be done, but I'll explain one thing at a time. So if you get distracted, you get back to that knowing. Because it's there also at the basis of being distracted. Like if you imagine that in your mind you would be associating from one thought to another, kind of drifting. If you just imagine that, but then at the basis there is a knowing. So just latching to that knowing, coming back to that knowing again, and from there bringing that cause of being distracted, thoughts, emotions, sleepiness, drowsiness, letting all of that be included in this knowing. And as I said that we don't apply concentration, but in explosive mantras like pet mantra, that's actually like a peak of concentration in a very short period of time. So the instruction goes that if it is not clear, for one reason or the other, you're not sure, hung, pet! You punch a hole into your whole body mind. What happens, like if you're able to perceive what happens in your subtle body of channels and centers, is that you can actually see a hole making to it. It's not a destructive hole, but like it disperses all this stuffy, messy energy.
Could you say something about if there's sort of an energy that you find it difficult to include there's a subtle sort of pushing away, you know. So if there's a difficult energy that you can't just put your arms around, if you like, you sort of, I tend to, I'm always sort of slight pressure to exclude it.
Right. Well, the key then is to like, just like you're saying, if you have something that you're not quite sure what it is, or if it's something that you find pushing away and you kind of don't know what to do, then see what happens here in the headspace. First check what is happening here at the center pole of your body. Do you understand center pole?
Yeah.
At the center column. So first check that. When you clarify that space in your head, it doesn't really matter what's out there. Then you can be with it. But if it's not clear here, meaning if it's already, I was meaning to talk about this in the emptiness talk, but since it came up, if we feel that there is some energy that doesn't, samsaric energy, it has already reached its tentacles into into the mind here as well. When it feels that it's difficult, it's whatever it is, it's already here. So check this space first, clarify that, and then when that clarifies, you establish the selfless knowing again. Then no pressure. Okay? So I was talking about explosive mantras. So we use explosive mantras like PET and tantric mantras in Tibetan heart yoga. If we think of concentration as a knob, volume knob, we do this from 0 to 80. Pit, 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 vam, vam. We do that. So there is an element of concentration, but we apply the principle in a different way than in classical meditation exercises. So first and foremost, in the Dzogchen practice, it's first and foremost get to the natural state, get to that knowing. That's always the most important. But now let's continue a little bit more and check this gentle concentration and gentle attention from the natural state. Now we're kind of binding it all together. So recognize knowing a few moments. Knowing is the same as saying being selfless. Being selflessly present. And now from that knowing, selfless awareness, put your attention to the location below the navel and follow the breath there. So we have the process of concentration and knowing awareness together. Mother and child together, or parent and child together. First 5 to 10%. Put the volume a little louder, 30-40%. Intensively watching the movement of the breath, couple of centimeters below the navel, while knowing it. And then tweak it up to 60-70%. Looking, feeling, sensating very intensively with knowing of it. And then relax the intensity back to 30-40. And now turn the volume down, 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 all the way to 0. When it comes to 0, the object location disappears. A moment, just plain awareness. And then let's do the same thing with attention. So we are sitting here in this room, and let's play that there is a mouse here. We don't know where it is, but we want to know. So we sharpen our senses, tactile, auditory. Do you say visionary? Visionary sense?
Visual.
Visual sense. A little bit, 5, 10, 15%. And then if the mouse was something dangerous, venomous, perhaps lethal, maybe a venomous snake, tweak up the intensiveness. Is that intensiveness or intensity? Intensity. And now take it further up to 80%. Really intensive. If you really felt that your life is threatened, it's very, draining to do this for a long time. So that's why when we've been intensifying, that's why we only did it for a short time. Now take it all the way down to 20-30%, 10%, back to the mouse level. And finally, release alertness. Being aware, look around at things, move your head. Okay. Any comments?
Very hard to do.
Hard to do?
With the snake.
Mm-hmm.
I managed it up to the snake, but then I found that.
What was hard about it?
To keep hold of the natural state and be fully aware of the danger of the snake.
Okay.
Because I think it starts like the fight or flight thing.
Yeah.
And you feel, your heart starts
Mm-hmm.
beating, and then it doesn't really sort of go with the natural state somehow.
Mm.
It's difficult
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to not let that cloud it.
Mm-hmm.
I found that time when I felt that I was more sort of within the natural state, I couldn't get too bothered by the snake.
Right, that's it.
I felt that I wasn't that. It was like when it was just the mindfulness, it was like I was really scared if the snake killed me.
Mm.
But with the awareness, it was like that fear of being killed had definitely abated. It didn't feel like I was under mortal threat in the same way.
Yeah.
So it was difficult to sort of then come up, get the intensity with the. I just didn't feel that bothered by it, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's definitely different when you're applying attention with the natural state in the background. It's
Completely different.
quite different.
Yeah.
It's also very draining, actually. I mean, you can feel it impacting the body mind as well. I felt it was karmically quite purifying in some ways, but also, wow, this really requires lots of energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even more so than just attention on its own, which was interesting. Maybe that's just my impression, that when you have the natural state and then you add in the intention, it's like, okay, this is a proper workout.
Mm.
But but maybe after a while it gets easier. So because I haven't never really done that before. So.
Yeah.
What?
Well, it is draining. Even I've done it. Before, and it's still draining because it's like taking. Well, if we're talking about high intensity concentration or attention, you're kind of taking weights and keeping like proper weights in your hand,
Sure.
and you do get tired. If they are big weights,
Yeah.
the bigger they are, more tiring it gets faster.
Yeah.
What's the advantage of bringing mindfulness into awareness? I mean, in practice sense, is it just to notice the difference of the mother and the child? Is there actually a practical, from a practice sense, that they're useful?
Yes. Yeah. Simple as that. I think it's crucial to understand the difference. First of all, to understand that, mindfulness-based practices are way, way more known in the world than awareness practices are. Right?
Very much so.
We have all the Theravada practices, Zen practices. Zen is very widespread. Then we have the whole mindfulness movement. There's a lot more people knowing about mindfulness than awareness practice. And as anybody can, with these instructions, as anybody can see for themselves, mindfulness certainly isn't the only way to do this.
Is Zen not an awareness practice?
Hmm?
Is Zen not an awareness practice?
Well,
Can be.
sure it is, but this is something that I studied last couple of weeks. You were asking me yesterday when you were driving me back from the airport that what I've been up to, and I said that a bunch of things, many things, and that's one thing I've been busy with, finding out that. So you were asking that isn't Zen an awareness practice? It should be. And Zen Buddhism is a really big complex. It's a under Zen Buddhism there are many countries, many different schools of Zen in many countries. It's a big whole, big complex. So it's not like a single thing we're talking about, but yeah, sure. The greatest Zen masters, they all say the same things as Dzogchen masters do, because they come to the same conclusion. But what I was finding out during the last couple of weeks is that how plain awareness practice is taught in Zen Buddhism, and like I won't mention names because somebody will rip their game shirts, but just a couple of days ago I was reading one of the most well-known Japanese Zen Buddhist masters of last century. He was saying that in his just sitting instruction, he was saying that I have the quotes upstairs in my computer, but I don't have my laptop here because I wasn't prepared to talk about it. I'll probably return to this next weekend. But he was saying that when you are just sitting, shikantaza, that you should be very, very alert. That's the Buddhahood practice, and you should be so alert, so intense that if somebody touches you, there will be sparks. That's not correct. Plain as simple as that. That's not correct. If we are talking about if and as shikantaza, just sitting or silent illumination, call it what you want. If we are talking about plain awareness practice, no alertness. If there is alertness, no problem. But it's not just sitting anymore. Then it's something else. Then it's samatha practice, mindfulness practice.
So, so the two, I mean, the first thing that really struck me from that was that sort of thing that attention and concentration seemed to be very self-based, something that I was doing, something I was making happen. Whereas this Hatha Yoga, this pure awareness, is this kind of non-self. There's not that sense of self within it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really interesting to start with.
Well, that are you continuing?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, no, if you want to say something.
Well, yes, that's a good point. An example. So you're saying that to you it felt like applying intention and attention felt like it's something that you do.
Very much so, yeah.
Of course.
There's
It
a
is
sense of self there.
sense of self there.
Yeah.
So, of course, it is something that is doing. It is activity. Right? But you can do this yourself. Put your hand in a fist and first just feel the skin of it. Not squeezing. Knowing awareness. Now squeeze.
That's the attention.
But now check back here to the headspace. Is there a self squeezing? Exactly.
Not really.
Yeah. So that's why I also wanted to do the second round with intention and attention based on awareness to clarify that it's just dynamic action. Right? If one has had insight, like experientially knows what emptiness, selflessness is, it's just dynamic action. It doesn't mean that when there is concentration, effort, that it would always be self-based. Of course not.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, because that chap, I don't know if this is relevant to talk about this now, but that guy, I think it was yesterday or the day before, put that really interesting question about the fact that he was saying that there kind of wasn't resistance to even the act of the self were as interesting as the rigpa. Do you remember that question that he had?
What?
He was saying that because thoughts and emotions, or in this case kind of maybe the application of attention, because that's empty as well, he was saying there was no resistance to that everything was selfless, even within the appearance of the self, even the self that appeared.
Mm?
And therefore, because that was the other sense I had, there was no resistance. It seems that even the attention was resistant somehow. There was a sense of, there's something about the open awareness, it's just wonderful, isn't it? It's just that kind of, it's just everything's just flowing through, isn't it? Or something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to describe, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, the deeper the deeper the insight is, more it is like that. And it's not actually even flow in the end.
So it seemed to me that again with the attention practices, that they're have we got time?
Yes.
Because I haven't done a lot of that Vipassana sort of stuff where it's all attention, it's all kind of days and days of samadhi, and then a week of Vipassana, that kind of thing. But it's I forgot what I was going to say now. That was it. There seems to be this background of the choiceless awareness, but there does also seem to be this kind of, it's really useful to have this concentration on this Vipassana, maybe just to clear the mind.
Of course.
to a point where that becomes so clear. So maybe there is a place not just for stepping straight into selfless awareness, which of course is quite hard to access, or I find it is.
Mm.
It might be alright for you, but
Well, yeah.
I mean, as you're
Yeah.
saying, if it's stable by the 11th Bhumi,
Mm.
then obviously that's wonderful, you know.
Mhm.
And then when you know what you're dealing with, I imagine it becomes a lot easier. But it seems at the bottom of the mountain, because I'm not familiar with that state.
Right.
Again, I keep trying to create that state, find that state,
Yeah.
make that state, be mindful of that state, practice to achieve that state. I'm still all in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's really good for revealing how that works, that
Yeah.
exercise.
Exactly.
Really good.
So, as you know, in Tibetan Heart Yoga we use this explosive concentration, very short bursts of concentration to get the job done, to get the drill hold, right? But then, like you're saying, like Vipassana needs to be practiced, insight needs to mature for correct understanding, to correct experience to be there, right? So what that means is that yeah, we certainly do need to practice Vipassana. That's what the whole Tibetan Heart Yoga is. But also, if during Ati Yoga, just like I've explained, Ati Yoga, if stuff comes up, and when it comes up, first come back to the knowing, and then be together from that knowing with the stuff that is there. This is Vipassana.
Mother and child.
No,
Oh, okay.
no, I'm talking about some samsaric energies, samsaric action that causes narrowing down.
But having those two together is quite a revelation for me. It's almost like that relative and the absolute sort of working together. So, oh wow, okay, well that helps.
Mm.
Why do they not teach that? So many teachers, I've never heard that. Like you say, it's mindfulness, awareness,
Well, that's
do this, do that.
it's not really like that, you know. But I think it's more a question of that pedagogies differ. It's more a question of pedagogies differing than it's not being there, because basically all Zen Buddhism says that it's there.
Mm.
But then with Zen Buddhism, there are, you know, it's the whole Zen expression, first of all. Not explaining stuff, saying, what is the word, saying absurd things. Doesn't help that much. You really have to engage with that approach and do it for, you know, grind it to understand it. And it's, you know, apparently it works for some people, but yeah, there are challenges there. Should we have a tea break now? I feel really tired after that. I feel like all of a sudden doing a workout in the gym, you know.
Yeah, sure.
I thought we were just like pinning you into the corner now.
Yeah. Because I've got lots of questions. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
no. I know I'm joking.
Well, we can continue
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
tea break.
Sure.
But I feel like taking a break myself, so
Sure.
now it's 2:10 and we have time until 3. So I think we will have half an hour tea break now until 2:40 and then continue 20 more minutes. Okay? So continuing live stream in 30 minutes. Thank you.